semifinals round. Trishula, always the bridesmaid, but never the bride. Trishula versing DistantCoder, one of our most decorated players throughout the base set format, as well as two-time Elestriad champion.
Very excited to see this. Coder repping that clash mat, which is just so beautiful. Trishula is going to, it looks like expend to draw set one and pass.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of is what we've seen out of a lot of these lists today, is that, again, so many of the Elestrals that are big right now are reactive Elestrals. So going for a expend to draw on your first play is really not a bad call. And down comes the whale from DistantCoder, the Galaxy. You have to imagine that if Trish had the PTA, we'd probably see it there. But it looks like there will be no PTA. The Galaxy is just going to connect for one here. Galaxy being one of the most interesting Elestrals to kind of play into with these decks. And Trish going for another expend to draw.
All right, and we see another set. And passing back over to DistantCoder, I have to say, Stellar Galaxy on the Clash mat, that is actually stunning and gorgeous. And we do see a Hurricane coming out, punishing those two set, which it was a Gorgon's Gaze and a Shield, two huge hits.
Absolutely.
Okay, and Navi coming out. It brings me joy every time we see the little Navi animation. Giving Trishula two big threats to have to deal with, especially now that those back row are gone. And we see Coder set one, and I think we swing for two and go back over to Trishula.
And realistically, the Navi coming down makes sense if you suspect your opponent's on a lunar strategy. Resting on your laurels, though, being able to clean up that Galaxy is absolutely killer. And the Cryo Blast for the Navi.
Gosh.
Just a full clean up there. Oh, that's deadly. Trishula going to, it looks like set one and then cast out a Navi of his own here.
Oh, man. That was an amazing turn. Completely clearing the board. Of course, we're getting to see all of these gorgeous stellar spirits from Trishula's side. I love those so much.
I absolutely love them. I would have a play set of them myself had they not, so many of them not been the Kickstarter exclusives before I quite got into it. There has been a game pause issued here. Not entirely sure what is going on. There was a card from Coder's deck in his Spirit deck, and that has unfortunately made an irreparable game state. That is going to be a game loss for DistantCoder. It does look like there has been a mulligan out from Coder's side.
This, I think that Trishula has probably opted to keep at this point, and looks like DistantCoder is happy and ready to get us started.
Yeah, absolutely.
An expend to draw.
I mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Really, I think with these decks, unless you see Rabbit in the opening, you're probably safely taking the expend to draw every time.
Yeah, I think you're probably right on that. And we are setting two classic, passing over to Trishula, who, let's see, are you also? Nope.
No, there is the Werepup. So, correction to my previous statement, you want to see either a resource generator or just expend to draw on your turn one. But the Gorgon's Gaze coming down on the Werepup is absolutely critical. It basically puts Trish on gotta have it to see if he opened with the full moon here. Because otherwise, and it doesn't even matter, the Cryoblast is going to come down and absolutely clean up this Werepup. It could very well be that Kevin top-decked the Cryoblast for turn. But I do kind of see your point. And down comes a stellar Werepup of Kevin's own. I imagine going for, that looks to be actually Waxing Gibbets. So this is a card that we have seen a lot played into the mirror match of Lunar Aggro specifically, as that's not something that you go for unless you are already locked, loaded, and ready to go.
I think you're probably right on that one. And we do see a swing. Trishula is going to take one spirit in damage and Cryoblast that puppy.
Yeah, I mean, that will in fact do it. No reason to even let the potential Like a Void come down. Just get rid of it. And down comes the funny bunny, the Astrabbit. Going to proceed to set one after the fact by the looks of it. And potentially swing in here.
Yep, and DistantCoder is just going to take that damage. These 3 back row that have been set, I imagine Coder is prepping for something big. And we see a bunny going down.
Absolutely. I imagine Coder might actually be going for the crash, and that's exactly what he's doing. Gonna get both bunnies off the board here.
The Coder was able to get whatever they wanted off of that bunny, and going into this next turn, Navi coming out, which is one of those cards that I feel like on a blank board, depending on what you're playing against, sometimes feels great, sometimes feels terrible.
Mm-hmm. Trishula coming down here with the Navi. Quite notably, Navi is very difficult to use into the mirror match here unless you have Zeus specifically in the grip. And looks like Coder is just going to let it go through, taking the 1. No real reason to block a 1 damage swing at this stage of the game. But Coder having a second bunny is going to just drop it right after the fact here. Quite notably, that bunny is in attack. I will say, I do think that Waxing Gibbous is probably like right up there with Full Moon as one of the best lunar phases, while we are in a format where lunar is everywhere. With that said, Ambro coming down here, going to be able to recover up 3 spirits for DistantCoder. Looks like he's going to be grabbing a Thunder, Lunar, and I believe that was a Flurmine, so a Frost. Kind of telegraphing maybe that there's the Cryo Blast as the immediate follow-up.
Telegraphing exactly what just happened. And Navi has now gone down, which makes me think that maybe that's why this bunny was in attack all along.
Yeah, well, this bunny is going to be able to poke in for 1 here. Absolutely cleaning up game states with these attack position rabbits. Coder has been able to push significant advantage with them at this point. Looks like, I think that is a Werepup coming down from Trishula. Oh no, the Werepup was just in his discard.
Yeah, that was in the discard pile. But we do see Eddie coming out.
Eddie is a little bit funny here because you don't even need the effect.
No, you don't want to move the bunny into defense. And Coder simply going to let the bunny go down. Looking at these back row, I'm also curious about these back row and what we're actually dealing with. As you mentioned, probably one of them is Full Moon. If we saw the Waxing Gibbous grab, and a 4th back row has been set.
A 4th back row has in fact hit the board here, and we're just trying to see what is Coder going to do. They are down pretty heavily on spirits compared to Trishula here. Doesn't really seem like he's able to find guys. I think he took an expend to draw in that last turn as well, and now is going to take 1 off of this Eddie. Go in here, and down comes an Eddie of his own using the Ed, and Edward art, my personal favorite. Going to try and put this other Eddie to defense and get a swing in over that. But again, Trishula has 3 back row. You have to imagine I'm not using it apparently.
No, it's one of those situations where it's like, are these random lunar phases that we're looking at that we just don't have the right board states for? But Elechick is coming out, gonna go in, search a Divine Rune, which is that Zeus, which is huge here.
You have to imagine that this is probably the beefiest Hurricane bait that we have ever seen.
I do wonder if Hurricane is any of these sets. Because I have heard people say that fake out Hurricane being set, sort of the, hey, I'm going to set back row. Are you going to set back row? Mind game.
So notably, Trishula flipping up one of those back row to reveal a Zeus is going to proc it 4-1 to try and swing over the Eddie here. Coder going to flip up a Shield of Achilles and put that Elechick back in the hand. So notably, Elechick did search a Zeus, but that was not the Zeus that we saw used there. So Trishula kind of has given Coder the knowledge that he has a Zeus now ready to fire for the next time he wants to go in. And Ambro coming down here out of DistantCoder, this is his second one, is going to grab 3 spirits back. It looks like 2 Owloon, and not entirely sure what he's going to grab. It looks like a Zaptor.
Yep, that is the Stellar Zaptor.
Yeah, gotta say, in these kind of, it's interesting that we're calling it a simplified board state in a way, because back row everywhere, but not a card to flip. Down comes the Nobby, though, going to try and get some kind of pressure moving, I guess. With that, another back row coming down out of Coder. You have to imagine that his hand was probably mostly back row, and he's just been searching for guys the whole game. And now that he has them, where are all of Trish's guys?
Down
comes a rabbit.
Yeah, we see Bunny coming out.
It's interesting to see that PTA, something that has been a staple piece of the meta since base set, has kind of fallen out of favor.
Is a funky set from Coder that might be able to be used here? No, seems like we are simply going to pass because neither of these Elestrals can hit over this big defensive Bunny.
But the fact of the matter, looks like Trishula has something here. Quite notably, it's a Nobby, but miscast with water.
Ooh, okay.
I have to imagine. Down comes what looks like, I believe that's a full moon out of Coder.
Yes.
Going to re-enchant his Nobby with a lunar spirit here, which will make it to where Trishula's Nobby will lose attack, as that Nobby does not currently have a lunar spirit under it.
Playing around Tsunami, but this is the downside of something like that.
But you have to imagine, though, if Trish is swinging in with a water Nobby like that to dodge the Tsunami, he has to have full moon in the back line. That is the safe way to ensure that one of these hits is going to go off like that.
Yep, and you're right. Even with that Tsunami, Nobby has very little defense, so that would work.
Yeah, Trishula is activating full moon here. I have to assume in response to the Nobby effect, which will allow his Nobby to become enchanted with the lunar, no longer getting hit by the other Nobby stat drop, and his Nobby can still swing over the Eddy that is now dropped to 0 attack, mind you. And with that in mind, he connected an attack successfully. He will go up to a Doppelgator here. And this Doppelgator is still 5 over Coder's Nobby's 4.
Ooh. But
very confusing. But
there Coder is that waxing gibbous.
The waxing gibbous that we knew was there.
DistantCoder looking at these cards, thinking about what's next. And it is a Zeus. Yeah.
There is the Thunderbringer coming down and is most likely about to drop this Doppelgator into a range where his own Nobby can just wipe it. Or better yet, it might be dropping the Astrabbit here, so Nobby can clean up both of them, as the Nobby would still get his own ascension into Doppelgator after the fact there.
Yeah, although... And we do have a Tsunami coming out, and Trishula notably paid for that Tsunami off of the water spirit that was enchanted originally onto that Nobby that then ascended into Doppelgator.
Well, that makes sense at this point, as the Doppelgator is down with 2 lunar. You don't really need to keep that around anymore.
Definitely. So we have a scoop, which means that we have Trishula moving into the finals.